Welcome to the For the Win podcast. How dare you? The best gaming podcast in the world. Oh my gosh. All right. Today's podcast is brought to you by my merch. If you want to buy a hat, we have like 8 more left in stock. So pick one up if you want to make Halo great again. All right, guys. Here we go. First topic. Activision removes Nickmercs' Call of Duty bundle after claiming that elementary kids should be left alone in schools and not educated on LGBT topics. The next day, he clarified his comments further. He said, "It's not that I think it shouldn't be spoken about. If that's what you got from that tweet, you're just wrong." And then after the stream, Activision removed his operator bundle from the store and made a statement saying, "We're focused on celebrating Pride with our employees in our community." And the update on that is Nick's friend, who also had a bundle in the store, Tim, he asked for his to be taken down because they kind of were their best friends and they kind of went into it together. And then, you know, he didn't feel good about his being up there and his friend's not. And so, yeah, pretty huge news. It made like huge waves. Mainstream media caught wind of it, which doesn't happen for gaming news a lot. But any initial thoughts? We have the tweet right there. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I also heard Dr. Disrespect like uninstalled Warzone on stream.
Yeah. Classic. Some people are up in arms. Some people are like, you know, Look, I'll just say my thoughts because I've been actually watching Nick for a long time, and he is very much not someone like I've watched a lot of his streams, a lot of his content, like the kind of person he is, and he's very much a hey, peace and love, do what makes you happy type of streamer, like zero drama type of person. So this was actually really surprising to me that people would just like went crazy on him because he's someone who's like, there's a lot of really, really problematic streamers who say the craziest stuff ever. And he's like the bottom of the list for people like that. So I was pretty surprised. And when you watch the clip, he's talking about his son, you know, and he's like, hey, for like me and my wife talked about it and we want to talk to our son about, you know, sexuality and these topics. And that was literally all it was. And I'm like, that's fair enough. He's your child. Like, that didn't seem like a problem to me. He wasn't even saying like, I'm against all this and da-da-da. No, he's just like, yeah, I saw that video and I wouldn't want a school talking about that to my kid. He's like, just for me and my wife, we talked about it. So I thought this was like way escalated and blown out of proportion. And it was kind of crazy to me that they just removed his bundle like instantly, like without doing anything. So I don't know. It was pretty, I don't know. I felt like it was really blown up on Twitter and it didn't need to be.
It's really just what it insinuates more than anything. Right. So like, which is why he had to do a second statement to try to further clarify what he meant. There's a lot of insinuation that the queer community is full of groomers right now. That's like what a lot of the that gets thrown around a whole lot, especially on Twitter, the cesspool that it is, just in general.
I think even more specifically the trans community more than like the gay and lesbian community.
Right. And so there's a lot of just, you know, that thrown around. And the initial tweet, that is exactly what it looks like. If, you know, it's not hard to try to read into seeing that's what's being inferred by the initial tweet. And so, yeah, it's, I don't think it's wrong for a company to step aside from somebody that is profiting using your game, and they don't. Any company doesn't want any heat, just hands down. And for it doesn't matter like whatever else the topic would have been. If you make any kind of statement towards any kind of group, there's going to be consequences of it. Even if it's not exactly what you mean, it's what can be inferred from what you say because you represent something else. So
no matter what he was ever going to say, it's almost like you can't really say anything about anything because you're at risk of angering some side, which is why like Twitter and social media is terrible in general. But the irony is people are posting, there's the other update is, in the Middle East version of Call of Duty, the pride flag banners are censored and they don't put them in the game. So people are like, well, Activision, you're distancing yourself from this person who made these comments, but do you really, really believe that, or are you just, kind of...
Activision wants to make as much money as possible, and they're going to market each game in different areas differently, and that is how gaming has always been. Like, we had different versions of video games, even back in the 80s, that had religious references that Japanese companies didn't want to upset Christians, for example, in America. So they would remove anything that could be skewed in that way. And it's always been that way. We've always released media that is meant to be multi-global to multi-global. That's a weird phrase. I don't even think that's a real word. We've always released media that's consumed globally with localized versions. And in this scenario, in Middle Eastern countries, it's illegal to be homosexual. And so they're going to not have anything homosexual related in that version of the game. That's not...
Yeah, I mean, corporations are cold and calculated. Everything that they do is... Every decision they make is because they think that's what's going to make them the most money. And this particular issue, like the tweet and the removal of his operators from Warzone is like the very, very like surface level of the issue. Because this whole thing of whether or not this should be taught in schools comes from, it comes like a lot of things. It comes from like a good place. There's students in schools whose parents are completely checked out or don't have parents. And so the school feels like they need to come in and really parent these kids. But it's gone too far now to the point where kids are being encouraged to go to teachers and tell them things and they don't have to tell their parents about it, and they can do things and their parents will never know about it. And so that's why we're seeing so much backlash from actual parents. They're like, no, I want to know if my kid is doing this or talking about this or, they're my kid. So that's like the deep root of this issue is, who is parenting these kids and, what rights do parents have?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I wonder if his bundle will ever go back up.
In Middle Eastern version of Call of Duty, can you still play as like a female operator?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But it totally gives me Disney Chinese Star Wars vibes.
Can you be playing DMZ as a female operator in Call of Duty and get in the car and drive? Like,
can you play in your neighborhood? Speaking of kids, McDonald's releases their video game for a 25-year-old console, the Game Boy Color, and I thought it was a cartridge, but it's not a cartridge. It's just the online game, but they used the whatchamacallit to actually make the game.
They use GB Studio. Cruel Toys is GB Studio and spent 7 weeks making the Grimace Game Boy Color game, and they have it hosted on their website. And there's a JavaScript-based emulator that plays in your browser, but people realize it's really a Game Boy Color ROM running into this emulator. It's not just a browser game; it's an emulator. So people ripped the Game Boy Color ROM, and it's on archive.org now. And I put it on my Flash cartridge, and I played it on my Analog Pocket yesterday. I played through it in its entirety.
I love it.
It's like 6 levels, and it's actually like the music is well done. The graphics are pretty sharp for a Game Boy Color and really well animated. And each of the stages has its own different mechanic. Like the first 4 stages, you're skateboarding as Grimace, and or first 2 levels. I don't remember. First 2 levels, you're skateboarding as Grimace, and then the next one is like a normal side scroller. Next one, you have like this bubble mechanic. It's pretty cool. It's worth playing through. The music is good too. It's surprisingly so.
Did you guys ever own a Game Boy Color?
Of course. I still have my Game Boy Color that I had. I had the Pokemon one.
This picture you have, Dave, in the run sheet.
It's the same one.
The lime green
Game
Game
the
Boy
one
Color.
you had.
That's the one I had. And so growing up, for my birthday and Christmas, my grandma would get me like those little LCD games. Like they were usually like baseball or basketball or, something like that. And so she knew like I liked video games. And one day she took me to Fred Meyer and was like, we're going to get you a new video game. And then we will go into the electronics section. And there's a Game Boy Color. I was just like, oh, I really like this. And I somehow convinced my grandma to buy me a Game Boy Color with Mario Tennis. And it was just like the greatest thing. She's like in her 70s. I had no idea what it was. What it was.
Did she have sticker shock when she got to the counter? Yeah, a Game Boy Color was like I think $79.99.
I think that's about what it was, because the Game Boy Advance was like just released or about to come out, and so it wasn't like brand new Game Boy Color, but yeah, but yeah, I love that thing.
So do you think this could set a new precedent? I mean, I've heard a lot of good things. Do you think it could set a new precedent for, like, I think it would be super rad if companies started to do this and release like some cool little games or things alongside these promotion deals. Do you think we're going to see more of that in the future? I think it's super cool.
The company that put this together for McDonald's, Cruel Toys, they had done other things using GB Studio before. This isn't their first project, and they had made a game for Lil Uzi. That one was actually on a cartridge that got with a box and everything. Yeah, and there's a full on game that was made using GB Studio, because GB Studio is lets you make real Game Boy games, but it's more or less drag and drop. There's not as much programming needed, and so you can crank out pretty playable things. There's been a lot of Crunchyroll had a new Game Boy game that was made and sold on cartridge to advertise a new anime that they have commissioned and everything. That's going to be exclusive to their streaming service.
Oh,
so
nice.
Stuff like GB Studio could definitely make this possible and plausible for a company to say, we got this new marketing thing coming up. Let's get something. Is it going to be great? Who knows? Because you can make something terrible with GB Studio too. But yeah, even if everything right now, all the projects that have made it to market for that purpose have been great. We know how these companies are, and it's that like 7 weeks is an insane amount of time. You tell me you want me to design video game in 7 weeks, like that's how we got ET back in the day, right? And so like that was 5 weeks. So we're dealing with a 2 week buffer. What can you do with? Because there's only 3 people that made this game. What can 3 dudes in 7 weeks do? And that's what we get with Grimace. What can 1 dude in 5 weeks? And that's ET. Like.
I think we need to do some in-depth investigating and see if Crunch was involved in the making of this, and call out the studio that made it.
They have an amazing website.
No Crunch culture.
Yeah. I think it's a sick opportunity. I think it's really cool that it's giving like indie and like studios to make money still developing like games, right? Because McDonald's paid them to make this game. So I think it's really cool opportunity that like, you know, someone like anyone who's just talented at making Game Boy Color games could potentially land a deal with a company. Like, hey, we're doing a promo. Like Lil Uzi Vert, he wants a Game Boy game. We can make one for you. I think it's really cool. My question, Henry, though, is what's better? Was the game better or the Grimace purple milkshake?
So you know, I've had this. I'm gonna sound so fucking fat right now because like I've had 3. I had one today. No. So
you're gonna have the fat Grimace fingers, and you're gonna start tweeting like him. You're gonna start.
That's
tweeting
the goal.
like him.
I want to be Grimace. I have to become Grimace. So like, because all right. So last Friday, right? Allison and I we're hanging out, and we order in super late. We're like hanging out and watching a movie. We're drinking, and we decided to order it because we both are just getting like really hungry. It was like 10 o'clock at night. The only thing that's open is gonna be McDonald's, right? We order McDonald's, and she sees this thing that says it's Grimace's birthday. And so as a gag, she goes, "Hey, did you know Grimace has his birthday coming up?" And I had already seen the ads, right? So then that I go, oh yeah, it's on the 12th. And she's like, how and why do you know this? Just because without skipping a beat, I'm like, oh yeah, Grimace, it's on the 12th. Yeah, duh. And like, so we were memeing about it all weekend, and like, because I fell in love with like the advertising campaign they were doing. Like, did you see what they did?
Oh yeah, it's great. All the merch was super cool, and all the throwbacks.
Like Grimace took over the McDonald's socials, and his fat little fingers were giving all kinds of typos. As he's
Wendy's was like, everything all right over there?
They had this the picture of him with that 80s car, and everything's tinted purple, and he's got sunglasses on, and he's got his air freshener of himself hanging down, and the purple milkshake. I set that as my Facebook cover photo because I think that's just it's very aesthetically pleasing, including Grimace's portly shape. And so when I got home on the day of Grimace's birthday, the 12th, I get home and she just goes, "Do you want to go out for Grimace's birthday?" And I say, "I am so glad you asked," because I had been thinking about it all day because I wanted that wild berry shake, and I almost ordered it to the data center for lunch. And so we went and got it. And then yesterday, I can't leave work. I'm not allowed to leave work to get food because someone has to be present at the data center all day at any given time. And Monday, we went. I didn't order at work because we went out to Din Tai Fung as an office. Like, we had somebody stay behind, and we all, because usually it's just me in the data center, but there are some days when other people are in the office. We all went out to Din Tai Fung. So
spicy shrimp wontons. Shout out!
I'm not going to skip free Din Tai Fung, right?
No,
the office is paying for it, and so I didn't order it in. So I got it there, but then Tuesday I needed lunch, and there wasn't anything in the pantry, and so I ordered it in, and then today, Allison's work took her out to the Mariners game. They got VIP box seats. So, all my food I cook is for, 2 people. So, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get fast food today on the way home. And it's, while I'm getting McDonald's, I'm going to get my boy Grimace's birthday meal. Because, when you order it on Uber Eats, it's mandatory that you have to enjoy. That's an extra requirement. You have to click enjoy my meal. You can't just add the birthday meal to your cart. You have to add the enjoyment. That's mandatory. Grimace says you have to enjoy his shake. And when you go through the drive-thru, after you confirm your Grimace birthday meal, and they say, "Is there anything else?" And you say no. They tell you first window, because they always have 2 windows. Like McDonald's, I don't know why that is.
Do you still try to order things supersized?
No, I don't. But
I still do that.
after they confirm the order, Grimace takes over the entire signboard at McDonald's at the drive-thru. He pops up and he says,
"No."
He says, "Yeah, he does." He goes, he pops up and
hilarious.
says, "Hey," he's like, "Thanks, party people. Enjoy my birthday meal." And then like,
I gotta go order.
I like how much effort they put into this.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like-
huge.
Gosh.
So like, yeah, you're welcome, my boy. Like, Grimace has always been my favorite because his name sounds ironic. Because he's like, you know, because like no one wants to grimace. Like when you're dealing with like a Happy Meal. Grimace is on a Happy Meal. It's like ironic, but Grimace was originally evil, and I love that.
U.S. judge temporarily blocks Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard deal. Microsoft is attempting to persuade regulators around the world to clear its $68.7 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard, the biggest deal of its kind in the gaming industry. Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, says we welcome to present, or the opportunity to present our case in federal court, blah, 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 blah. And says ultimately it will bring more choice and competition to the market. And my question is, first, what are your thoughts? But if and when, because it looks like it probably will go through, it's just a matter of time. Could we potentially see Halo DLC coming to COD / COD DLC coming to Halo / maybe some Master Chief in Diablo action? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Okay, that's a horrifying thought. I hate this. I hate this, like, you know, Reese's peanut butter cupification that we've done with all these IPs, where it's like, oh, you got your Halo and my Call of Duty. You got your Call of Duty and my Halo, and it doesn't always end up working. Like what the? I forget. Master Chief got announced for Brawlhalla the other day, right?
That's on the list. Yeah,
stupid. Like I don't want crossovers in everything. It makes everything. It dilutes every franchise and intellectual property. I can't say if I believe it to be a good or bad thing if this merger happens. There's good and there's bad, and I do not know which one outweighs the other, because there's so much more to it that I don't know if we can really go into it.
There's so many implications, and one of the big things they talked about is it'll be really good for cloud gaming. But yeah, I'm kind of torn as well, like 50-50. I'm like, well, I mean, there's a lot of upside, but then, you know, Microsoft hasn't done so hot with my favorite franchise in the world, and so, you know, God forbid they take something like Diablo that is crushing and people are loving it and run it into the ground.
I mean, Blizzard almost like ruined it themselves. So, like,
you know, I think a lot of this stemmed from, you know, just the controversies at Activision and Blizzard, and so I almost see it as Microsoft coming in and trying to buy it up and change the culture. And, you know, obviously they're primarily competing with Sony and Nintendo. And I know Sony is very, very opposed to this deal. But I don't know, you know, I like the Xbox like brand and the Xbox, the Xbox exclusives and things like that. They haven't done much with them recently, but yeah, it was crazy when Activision bought Blizzard. People kind of freaked out, and then when Microsoft bought Bethesda, people were like, "Whoa, that's almost too much." And now doing this on top of everything, it's like, whoa, okay. that's like a big deal. But I don't think they have a good enough reason to like not allow it. Like Sony's reasons for not allowing it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's like Sony's selling more consoles They've sold more PS5s. They won last console generation PS4s.
Yeah.
So
this is a big play. It is a big, big play. And I think they're trying to like solidify, kind of get like, if they can own the games, I think they can own the consoles, right? I think that was the big downfall of the Xbox One. It was like, there wasn't, you know, what were we doing with that console?
Well, that's exactly why Sony's so upset, right? Because Sony has nailed down exclusives, and that's how they did well with the PS2 generation as well. And that's where they fumbled a bit with the PS3 generation, was exclusives. And so to see Microsoft buy a studio that has so many IPs that Microsoft could theoretically say, you know what? We don't have to let them be on the PlayStation branding. That's Sony's entire MO, how they did so well with the PS1 and PS2 and PS4. So to see that happen on such a grand scale is a horrifying thought in their mind.
yeah, it's like they don't have any like room to talk because they do the same.
Right.
They've done the same thing with like Final Fantasies throughout the years, Metal Gear Solid, you know, like.
Yeah, it's
They
two
pay
giant
for their
bullies
exclusives.
duking it out, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, where the chips fall, where it lands. But speaking, I got to stop doing speaking of for every single transition. But this is so exciting. This is like, you know, breaking news. I just saw this today, and I thought I have to add this to the run sheet. SpongeBob SquarePants Power Wash Simulator DLC is dropping June 29th. Hose down the Sponge's famous Pineapple House, as well as the Krusty Krab and other well-known locations and vehicles from the show. And what's cool is it adopts the cartoon's visual style and even comes with a new set of trophies, blah, blah, blah. 6 missions, and guess what? DLC is only $8. How sick is that? Did you guys see it?
Why was the Final Fantasy DLC on Power Washing Simulator free and the Tomb Raider DLC?
I don't know.
This isn't the first like license. This isn't the first license. That's both the DLCs are licensed.
SpongeBob's got to get his money, you know. But I looked at it, the videos, and it looks so sick because it's like you're just in Bikini Bottom. They didn't like 3Dify it. Like it looks similar to the art style, and so I really like it.
How does power washing underwater work?
Maybe it's air. It's like reverse. No,
just blasting like air at. I want to watch the boat car thing. I didn't watch SpongeBob a lot as a kid. I watched it more as an adult than as a kid. Actually.
And I bet if they have soundtrack, if they have music, it's gonna be super fire. Man. Like the Hawaiian luau music while you're just.
I want custom load screens like 1 hour later, like as it like loads.
Hell Let Loose. Devs apologize following glitchy trailer reveal at PC Gaming Show. So at the packed with eerie technical issues, hilarious animations, strange camera angles, the new trailer from the War Simulator Hell Let Loose was all but a shameful performance that tuned down the expectations for the future game rather than hyping up fans for what's coming. Did you guys see this trailer?
I did not see that.
I watched it. It's one of the funniest things.
Maybe we can hold on. Maybe we can watch it real quick. Let me share screen. How's the volume?
Men, you are about to embark upon the great crusade towards which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you.
Why is it like a 32-year-old narrating?
And skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
Cross shot.
United!
Reload as you run into the trench. Can't see anything.
We've taken a German opening! Schnell und halten! Kein Schritt zurück!
What is it?
Okay, me first, then John, then Henry. Okay, so the first thing I noticed was, yes, that guy's voice. I'm like, this is the worst voice. This sounds like if I wanted to make a trailer and I like grabbed a buddy and like, hey, can you do like an epic, war voice? But then the thing that really threw me, and maybe you can speak to this, Henry, because you were in the military. You probably jumped out of a plane at some point. He jumps out of the plane and immediately pulls a chute. Like, immediately. And you see planes flying beneath him. I'm like, this seems relatively dangerous and kind of a bad time to pull your parachute the second you jump out of the plane. But then it was the end, like the weird camera angles, the running. But the thing that really weirds me out, I think the whole, all the audio design is just like all over the place, because you see like 3 guys and you hear 10,000 bullets and cannons and just, and there's one guy standing there. And it just is really like confusing to watch, because you're hearing one thing and then you're seeing another. But yeah, they apologized for that. It said, "We're sorry, we let you down. We let our fans down, and we want to do better." But I'm just like, did anyone watch it? Who did? Because so everyone watched it and was like, "Yeah, it's not bad. All right, let's do it.
Show it, run it." My favorite comment on the video was someone said, "I thought the programmers who were asked to do the voiceovers did a great job."
Oh my God. So good.
But like that opening monologue is coming from like a 4-star general, like, or whoever is leading the entire operation, and it sounds like just some dude my age just talking. Oh yeah, but that was funny.
It reminded me if you've ever just been messing around with like a PC game and it uses like in-game cinematics, and then you're like, you've glitched the game, or you're using some kind of camera mod, or you're running around during cutscenes, you're moving the camera around, so it's stuff that you're not supposed to see.
Yeah, that shot from the grass was
the one where like
screen.
The dude's gun was like way up here, like
it was so weird.
It looked like somebody it looked like my PC was not running the game properly. Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like.
And videos like this are good because with the death of E3, like, we don't get any funny, cringy meme moments anymore on presentations. Like,
like, was it trying to render live? Like, how does that happen? Like,
I have no clue. I think they just
apology accepted.
Thought it was good, but yeah. So, anyways, there's a lot more into that story, but they kind of had a similar Bungie 343 situation, and so their 343, their studio that took over that game, has not been crushing it, and so a lot of fans who loved the original games before the new studio bought it, they're struggling with that.
It makes me wonder if it's like a Halo 2 E3 moment with that demo with New Mombasa, where they're having to like render it live on the fly and delete objects after they were not in camera anymore, otherwise the development kit would crash, and some situation behind the scenes like that where the game was not nearly as done as they wanted it to be, and somebody dropped the ball.
Well, they got it somewhat kind of together and released Halo 2, and it had its issues, but it turned out to be a classic. So hopefully all that feedback will give the devs something to work with. And
I've programmed before. I get it. I know I know things can happen.
Yeah. Xbox Showcase reveals new Series S console. And they also did a trailer. They did it was actually a pretty cool trailer for it. And they talked about new SSD cards coming out. But in the whole 2-hour presentation, there was absolutely no mention of anything Halo related. Days later, 343 dropped the trailer for Halo Infinite Season 4, and it looks pretty sweet, and it got a pretty good reception. So what does that mean for Xbox and the future of Halo, that they wouldn't even just, they have a sick trailer that, the game's like almost to the point where it's like, hey, it's in pretty good condition. Henry, you've been playing it, you've been having fun with it. And yet they just decide, with millions of people watching, to potentially get new players in and old players returning. They just say, we're not going to talk about Halo. This is Starfield. What do you guys think about that? I think that's pretty wild myself.
I get it. To me, it's like, okay, they know they dropped the ball with Halo Infinite, right? That's a dead horse. They don't want to pull attention on themselves because the game still isn't where everyone would like it to be. And so the game plan, from my perspective, the game plan is for them to stay out the spotlight, keep the core audience they currently have, get the game fully functional again, and then out of nowhere, they can, once it's like, we're ready, it will come back, which is what happened, if we really think about it, with MCC. MCC, we had that whole that disaster of a first year. Halo 5 came out, took the focus away from Halo MCC. They got MCC running again. Halo 5 slowly died itself out, and now MCC has a fairly consistent performance and community around it again. And so they're still working on the game and getting that without getting more heat on them. I could see, I don't know if it's a Microsoft decision or a 343 decision. Like, I could see higher ups at 343 saying, not wanting to just get more attention, to lay a bit low while they just keep cooking the game, So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I don't think we'll ever see a significant increase in Infinite's population until something major like a Battle Royale drops. That's the only thing that I could see, like, actually bringing, like, a large population back to the game.
Or some big, like, update, like a map pack or something that's super substantial. They've just been doing little releases, but nothing like, oh my gosh, I really gotta go check this out,
Yeah, I don't even know that maps would do it unless they did, like, it's Halo Infinite. We're including every single map from Halos 1 through 4, or, something just like insane like that,
Like, we've seen other games have a recovery that had absolutely disaster launch. Like, Cyberpunk had a disaster of a launch, but it turned itself around. Cyberpunk now, like, one of the highlights of the Xbox Showcase was the upcoming, expansion for Cyberpunk. That game became a laughing stock, but they turned it around. And now, if people start talking negatively on it online, it's pretty quick for people to shut that down. To a lesser extent, we saw the same thing happen with No Man's Sky. So it can have its redemption.
Can happen, but I think the primary difference is Infinite. The people that are playing Infinite are playing multiplayer. They're playing PvP, and so a single player game, yeah, you can update it, fix it, and like, oh, okay, people, but there's not like a community developing around it and interacting with each other constantly like there is in a multiplayer community.
Agreed,
and so to get like people to come back and like play multiplayer and like feel like it's fun and worth playing, and that's what I think has been tough with Infinite is, there hasn't been like good player progression and like unlocks. And so you like play and you do a battle pass and things and whatever, but then it's like your rank just resets and you're like, okay, what was this all for? I just kind of, there's nothing to show like, oh, I can see this guy has played this much because he has this specific armor, and like, dude, that's awesome. Like, I want to work and get that and unlock that eventually. Like, there's nothing like to play for. It's just, and the game to me isn't just like fun enough to keep playing over and over and over again. And mainly that just comes from not the actual gameplay, but the matchmaking and the what's it called? The forced matchmaking where they force you to win and lose. Yeah, the skill-based matchmaking where you win half the time, lose half the time.
I think that sucks the fun out of it, because if we think back to like the other Halo games, we, the three of us, obsessively played, and there wasn't a whole lot to unlock. If we think back, like in Halo 2, there were 0 unlocks, and I played so much of that online. Halo 3, once I unlocked the Halo 1 helmet, that's all I ever changed in my entire Spartan on Halo 3. Right? And Halo 4 and 5, like, once I got my dude something that I thought looked cool enough, I never really cared about the progression. The actual gameplay loop of Halo was enough to keep me interacting and wanting to play. And so I don't really care about, like, you guys remember when Infinite came out, how quickly I, like, boosted myself to, like, being maxed out. And
well, in Halo 3... all the armor like looked so good, and you could see when you're playing Halo 3, you could see what armor teammates had, what armor your opponents had. In Infinite, you're just looking at like these blue and red hologram outlines, and it's so you can't tell at all.
That's how come
like,
you had that
wearing.
whole thing at the beginning of the match where they show off every single person on your team.
You're still just seeing yourself. You're not seeing anyone else on the other team.
True.
And it's like, okay, I see it for like 2 seconds, but I'm just like really tired of just shooting at like blue holograms and red holograms.
I remember on like Halo 5, if you select another player, it like showed, I think on Halo 4 too, it showed like their entire Spartan. And you could like look up everybody's armor when we were like matching in a lobby. There was something just just deep down missing in the matchmaking and loop of like Halo Infinite that made us not play anymore. Because like, I know me personally, I don't care enough about like my dude on Halo Infinite looks really cool. I got that, so like, but once I got all that stuff unlocked in all the other Halo games, once my dude looked cool enough, I just continued to play obsessively for hours and hours and hours, and that was missing.
I think it's this having the skill-based matchmaking in all of the social playlists.
It pulls the fun out.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, I'm just like, I play to win. Like, I want to win every single game, and knowing that half the time it's like just out of my control because they match me with people that are really good or with teammates that are really bad. It's just like I don't have a lot of time to play games, and so knowing that it's like forced upon me, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna play something else.
Well, I know you don't have a lot of time to play games, but Diablo 4, it was launch week. Blizzard reveals Diablo 4 launch stats. Blizzard reveals week 1 Diablo 4 stats while players race to reach level 100 hardcore, which will get their names immortalized onto the statue of Lilith, literally a real statue. Diablo has made over 666 million in sales just in the game's first 5 days. Look at these numbers. 276 million hours played, 2.73 billion monsters killed. Look at this. And this is the big one that I'm like, oh, okay, this is part of what makes Diablo great. One of the many things. 166 million total parties created. That's a huge number. Like the fact that they have that, like they track that number, that 166 million times people have, we've between us, we've created probably, 20 parties or whatever, but like 166 million parties created. People have been playing together. It's a community game. And level 100 players on hardcore, there's only 163. There's probably more now, but 163 level 100 hardcore players, which is absolutely insane that it's that hard that only 163 people in the world
did you hear how the first guy lost the first player to get to level 100 hardcore, how he lost his character?
Tell us the story.
He was just playing his level 100. Internet lagged, got disconnected, went and loaded up the game again. His character died. Oh. He literally lost a level 100 character to his game disconnecting.
Oh. That's brutal.
And so that's like an issue. One issue I have with the game, but I've been playing a lot of it, and the biggest number that stood out to me is just like how tiny the number is, and makes me wonder why they even shared this number. Is the players killed in PvP? So 420, almost 430,000 kills. 430,000 kills in 276 million hours. That means like nobody is doing PvP like at all.
Mm. Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting. Well, I've been having fun with it. I haven't played a Diablo game ever before. And then I decided to just give this a shot, and it's actually been really, really, really fun. And it's definitely a steep learning curve if you've never played any of them before. But once you start to get into it, it's a fun, like we talk about gameplay loops and stuff. It's just a fun gameplay loop, and it's fun to just relax and mindlessly kind of go through dungeons. And when you there's nothing more satisfying than going through like a really hard dungeon and like almost dying a few times and defeating the final boss in that dungeon. He goes down and then ting, 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 all this loot pops out and it's glowing legendary gold, and you're like, oh baby, it's a fun thing, man.
It's the most amazing, stylish, immersive slot machine of all time.
I wonder if my boss is going to end up playing it, because I told you the other day, David, but my boss hosts a Diablo 1 server still at work, because him and his friends still play. And so
that's crazy.
I know he was in Japan when Diablo 4 came out like a few weeks ago. So I don't think he's had a chance yet to play it, but I know he wanted to, and that'd be to ask him how is it compared to someone that still religiously plays, Diablo 1 to the point where you're hosting a server at a data center still.
Yeah, I watched a speed run today, actually, of Diablo 1, and someone beat the game in 12 minutes because there's an exploit where if you get an item that takes you into, like, minus health, so it'll give you, like, minus 25 health, but then give you, like, more damage or something like that. But if you get an item that takes you into the negative for health when you equip it, then you're invulnerable. So then you can just cheese the whole game and you can't die.
Nice.
It's just like, it's just in there. It's been in there since release.
That's crazy. I'm going to go to 10. Starfield's direct showcase promises a massive space adventure. This is all the news right now. Starfield anticipation builds could be the biggest game of the decade, Bethesda promises there are more than 1,000 planets in the game, and as you scan them and land on them, randomized elements affecting layout and creatures will make sure your experience on a certain planet will be different than that of a friend over on their own Starfield save file. I watched the Starfield Direct. It looks like, because I love Fallout. I love Fallout 3. It looks like it could be the game that kind of every gamer has kind of dreamed of that's possible. I think we live in a time with technology where this kind of game is possible. I am very, very pessimistic myself, but I want it to win. Like, I want this to win. I want this to be like the greatest thing ever. I hope it is. I hope it's like everything we dream of. It's already starting to get a little bit of backlash as people find out more details. But one of the big things is it's locked in at 30 frames per second. It's not going to go higher than that.
On consoles, yeah.
It's important to note that's a stable 30 frames per second.
Right,
versus,
for fidelity.
Which is the proper move to do if your option is you can go higher than 30, but the frame rate is not stable, then you want it as stable as possible, right? Imagine we've all played competitive games. We've all played competitive, Street Fighter. We played competitive Smash. Imagine if the frame rate was not stable on that.
Yeah,
it changes the entire experience. Controller. Yeah, it would. I will take a stable 30 frames per second, 10 out of 10 times over up to 60, but it's anywhere between there. Between 30 and 60. That's not fun. That feels so off. So off.
And if the game is working and the game is fun and it's in 30 frames per second, that's fine. I mean, we grew up playing GoldenEye, and good Lord, the frame rate on that game, when you're playing on the console, you're there's just moments where you're just So I'll take 30 frames per second if it's a good game and it's fun. I think it is the right call. I would love to see them work towards getting that better, because it is 2023.
We played think about how long we played on OG Xbox and Xbox 360. How many games were actually still 30 FPS and and they're fine still now, right? Halo 1 feels weird on MCC because it is running at 60 FPS.
Yeah. I mean, are you guys excited? Did you watch any of the showcase? Does it look like a game you would be into?
Yeah, I'm kind of. I like half of Bethesda's games, so I definitely. My first Bethesda game I ever played was Fallout 3. That was the first big open world RPG that I ever played by them, and I loved it. And then I went back and tried to play Oblivion, and going from guns and nukes to swords and bows and arrows, it was tough. It was tough. Even the magic stuff was tough. I still played it, got all the achievements in it, but that said, I couldn't get into Skyrim, but I played the crap out of Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. So the one thing I can't get over is from the videos I saw, that you could just tell it was a Bethesda game just in the dialogue, because the characters just stand there and are just looking at you. I don't know if they're going to do more animations and talking with their hands or something instead of just
Right. It's a Fallout game in space. Will it have a little bit more of a unique identity?
Talking. No, barely any emotion, so and I get you kind of have to do that a little bit because people take their time to make a selection in the dialogue, and so you're just staring at a
I gotta read every single thing
standing there, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It didn't seem, I'm trying to think back on the actual action gameplay. Because I played a lot of No Man's Sky, and that had like very little. It wasn't like an action game. It was more of just kind of like an exploration and kind of building and crafting and upgrading your ship and things like that. So that was more of like a laid back kind of exploring game. But this one sounds like it has a lot more of like a narrative and story to it. So I'm interested to see what the story is all about.
I've never really got into any of the Bethesda games, but this looks interesting enough. Like, I have tried playing Oblivion, Skyrim, and Fallout 3 and 4. I've tried, and I start my file, and I never really get too far before I eventually check out. But aesthetically, this looks like way up my alley. The idea behind it all seems a bit more like I think it'll hold my attention a bit better than like Fallout did. But we'll see. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna like give it a shot once it comes out.
Well, nice part is it's on Game Pass.
I was really hoping for a New Vegas 2 remake. I thought we might see that, and that would have been very cool. But
yep. Well, we didn't get New Vegas, but Ubisoft's The Division studio reveals Star Wars Outlaws. Ubisoft describes Star Wars Outlaws as a scoundrel fantasy open-world action adventure set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I watched it. I watched the gameplay. I watched the whole thing, the Ubisoft Direct, and Outlaws looks fun. It doesn't seem like my kind of game. Didn't do a whole lot for me. Just kind of these setup scenarios, and the gameplay looked at like, especially like the gunplay looked pretty not great. So it didn't really appeal to me. And I'm kind of tired of just the Star Wars games and movies and things in general at this point. So I don't know. Did you guys see the gameplay at all? Did you guys have any thoughts on it?
I saw some of it. I saw some video of it. So I half agree with you. I half agree because gameplay wise, it looks interesting enough for me. The concept and style of game seems interesting to me. The thing that actually pushes it away for me is the fact that Star Wars is dead to me for the most part. Like,
well, yeah, that would push it away. So, that'll do it.
Everything else, if it was any other sci-fi game, I'd be like, oh, this looks interesting. But the thing that I think would draw most people to it, the fact that it's Star Wars and it's after, between Empire and Return of the Jedi, it's like, oh, that makes it very interesting. Yeah, I don't care anymore. Like, Star Wars has been like dead to me for a bit. And it's not just because 8 and 9 were terrible. It's just everything else. There's just too much that, like, I'm burned out on Star Wars. I'm so burned out on Star Wars that, like, I stopped caring and I stopped paying attention. So
yeah, what a world we're living in where, like, Star Wars being attached to a video game could be seen as, like a turn off, a negative a little bit. Right.
So you get to play as like a bounty hunter bad guy kind of thing back in the original trilogy. It's like, wow, that sounds very interesting. And it would have been 10 years ago. Like,
yeah. Yeah, the Star Wars fatigue is real.
Yeah, and for me too, it's like if I'm playing a Star Wars game, I mean, does anyone want to play a Star Wars game where they're not like using force powers and lightsabers? That's what I want to do is. But
yeah, unless it's really different type of game. The gameplay starts with her sneaking around, and my first thought was, man, a Star Wars stealth game like Splinter Cell in the Star Wars universe would be insane. Like, that would be crazy cool, fun, just where you're like a spy, you're a whatever scoundrel, and it's all stealth. It's not heavy gunplay. It's not any of that stuff. And then immediately, like, she started blowing everything up and jumped on a speeder and flew around and got chased. I was like, oh, not that.
Is this the first game? Because I know EA, had the Star Wars license for a long time, and then that just got like recently.
Well, Respawn did that game. They did Respawn. There was a game,
but that was still published by Electronic Arts.
I don't remember who published it. But to your point earlier, John, John asked, "Does anyone even want to play a Star Wars game where you're not playing around with force powers and stuff?" Yeah, in fact, I would say so many people are tired of Jedi crap with Star Wars games, like that. We're tired of this vast galaxy far, far away, and everything always just ends up revolving around the same core group of people. And it's like, that's not how a galaxy works, right? Like, it's like Star Wars is ridiculous, where they're like, oh, we landed on this planet, and they know exactly where somebody else landed. It's a planet. They treat planets like towns, right? Like, in the entire Star Wars universe, it's an entire franchise. So, like, yeah, I think a lot of people would like a Star Wars game where there isn't a lightsaber in sight, right? Like, as much as people think Star Wars, they think lightsaber, I think there's a good amount of people that would love a Star Wars game where there isn't a lightsaber. Which, I mean, I liked Rogue One. Out of all the Disney crap that's put out, like, Rogue One's probably actually at the top of my list of, like...
Rogue One. Yeah, same.
So, I mean... And then, like, I don't know, Shadows of the Empire in N64, like, that didn't have lightsabers. That's... You play as Dash Rendar in that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No Splinter Cell announcement at the whole thing, too. I was kind of bummed. I was hoping they would at least do something. I know it's in the earliest stages of development, but I'm such a Splinter Cell fanboy. I was like kind of jonesing for a little something, but it's too early. Okay, we'll blast through these next few and finish up. PALWORLD drops new trailer during the Summer Games Fest. Henry, we've talked about this a little bit in the past. The trailer itself shows off PALWORLD's stunning environments with plenty of pals and an arsenal of weapons on display. You see pals, aka Pokemon, wielding machine guns, LMGs, and all kinds of devices, making it equal parts cute and unnerving. On top of that, players can build their own homesteads, pal-powered factories, and of course, crawl plenty of dungeons with their pals at their side. Pokemon with machine guns. How does it get any better than that? Will you be playing? I definitely am. I'm interested for sure.
I don't think it's enough to get my real interest. If it turns out to be like fun, I'll give it a shot. But like, it wasn't enough to
no pun intended.
Yes, I had to like look into this. Like, what? I don't even remember this I watched the video and I forgot it. Like, so I guess it literally was forgettable for me.
Yeah, they're leaning hard on they're hoping that the comedy of it will like bring people in, but if the gameplay is not there, people are gonna like the novelty will wear off. I feel like pretty quick. Monkey Island creator had no idea Sea of Thieves crossover was happening. Sea of Thieves is getting Monkey Island crossover, but the creator, Ron Gilbert, wasn't aware. Quote, Disney did give him a heads up of the project as a courtesy, but the game was well into development at that point, and he wasn't given an opportunity to be meaningfully involved, said Terrible Toy Box's PR. So he tweeted, or a fan tweeted, oh, hey, I'm pumped for the Monkey Island DLC. I wonder if Ron Gilbert was involved. And he tweeted back to the fan, nope, wasn't even told about it. Happened behind my back. My initial thought is, well, look, it's, yeah, they could have done a courtesy and got him involved if they wanted to. But the reality is, if he doesn't own it anymore, it's not his. So he really can't be too salty. It's theirs to do with what they want, and as a courtesy they told him, and I think that's great. But it sounds like when you say it happened behind my back, that infers that there's some ownership there, that you you know, you weren't aware of what was going on and they did you wrong. But it's like, dude, you don't own it.
Yeah,
they don't owe you anything.
Working.
That's just the
like
reality.
He's still working at Rare, and he was working on some other project, and they were developing it behind his back and didn't tell him.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it, David. Like,
so I don't think it's a issue. But then, you know, some people are, oh man, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. People on Twitter sounding off, but it's like, look, if you sold it, you sold it. You have to, even if you love it, like that's part of that's the business. This is crazy. I saw this on Twitter today, and I just had to throw it in. Ark Survival reaches peak corruption with 93 player ban. So 93 players in Ark Survival were falsely banned after raiding a rival tribe who got them banned by the publishers of the game. No explanation was given. So the people just complained that it happened. But then many players have sounded off about the corruption of the dev team, i.e. The dev team who plays the game on the servers too. If they like lose dinosaurs or die, they roll back servers 5 minutes and they get their stuff back. They've also like spawn in with max weapons and they raid other players. They banned a top streamer of the game who raided the dev's base and exposed a bunch of their stuff in their base, like max weapons with like, it takes like whatever, I don't know what currency they use, but it's like a 1 repair stat. So if you break it, you only need like 1 gold to repair it instead of like, you know, 10,000 or whatever. So it's a max weapon with the lowest repair stat required. And people like are just going off, and they're really happy that news is kind of breaking because they're saying that the dev team is notorious. Like there's just tons of situations of this Ark Survival dev team doing this stuff. So 93 players worked, like coordinated, got on Discord to try and do this big raid, and they were successful against their rival. So they've been going back and forth, but then their rival complained to the devs, and the devs banned all of them. They weren't hacking. They weren't doing anything cheating or illegal. They were playing the game. Wild.
You're going to be a dev and cheat at your own game?
Well, my thought is this. My thought is I think it's really cool when devs play their games and they jump in, i.e. Halo 3, right? You jump into a match. Oh, my God, he has a flaming helmet. Dude, that's a Bungie dev. That's so cool, right? Then, like, doing things where, hey, if you beat a Bungie dev, you can unlock this nameplate or you can get this special reward, you know, like there's perks. And I think that's a great way to like get involved with your community. And, you know, they could easily do something like, hey, if you kill one of us, we'll give you a dope weapon. It's not game breaking, but it's going to be something good you can use until you can't use it anymore or it breaks or whatever. But this is not how you, I don't know. I just think that's so grimy.
yeah.
Well, to close us off, a man in North Carolina has been arrested for using a duck hunt controller to rob a convenience store.
I saw that.
Look at it. He painted it black.
At least he did that. I want to know if he had, like, when I saw it, I was like, did he have the orange one? Or did he at least have the original gray one then, before they switched it to orange? But then they painted it black. It still doesn't look anything real enough. Like,
I know. It looks like a Star Trek blaster or something.
Was that is that the orange trigger?
Yeah, the trigger's orange,
trigger.
and then there's a zip tie, I think, around it. So he didn't paint the trigger.
Got to make sure it still clicks.
Yeah. I wonder if the guy at the 7-Eleven was like had a giant TV on his head or something. Like just CRT. Oh,
well, after he got arrested, I wonder if like a dog popped out of the bush and like laughed at him as he was getting like.
What's the sound effect the dog makes?
It's just like this hee sound like the dog makes as it's just like
the cops
covering its mouth with its paw,
putting his head down, shoving him into the cop car, and then a little dog pops up. Wait, that's not Duck Hunt. What is that? I don't know.
I don't know what you're doing. I hear the duck hunt sounds in my head already. Like, you know, just looking at the gun. Just
wah, 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 wah. Wah, wah, wah,
Did anyone actually play the skeet shooting?
Oh yeah, I did.
Oh,
I played that all the time. Like that was fun because it was consistent. Like you knew exactly where they were coming out, so you could like pop. I didn't know what they were as a kid. I thought I was shooting clouds. They looked like
flying saucers.
They looked like little clouds. So I was like, yeah, let's play the cloud shooting game. Like because it doesn't even say like it's like mode A, mode B, and like yeah, there's ducks, and then there's like cloud.
All right, that's for the win. Awesome. First episode. Love to see it. We'll see you next Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. I think we should do release on Thursdays. It's a plan. All right.
Yeah.
For the win.